Oh, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another great edition of Cocktails with Cav. We are coming to you after a much-deserved vacation down here in New Orleans. We we survived Mardi Gras. We survived an incredible blizzard snowstorm that, I can tell you, we were in no way prepared or built for. We're just not built for it down here. But that's okay. We survived. We're back. And tonight's show, you're going to want to stick around. We are bringing to you the incredible anthology of crime, noir, and pulp fiction just recently released and called Romy Lives. It celebrates the life of heralded European actress Romy Schneider, whose life and end were equally fantastic tales, but I tell you, the works in this anthology are incredible, and you're going to learn all about it with our incredible panel on tonight's show. First up on the panel is one of the editors of this incredible work, A.B. Patterson. He's from Australia. He's a writer who's a former detective sergeant working in pedophilia and vice, and later a government corruption investigator. His award-winning debut novel, Harry's World, introduced readers to the jaded and flawed PI Harry Kenmare, and Harry's Quest was the second award-winning sequel in the PI Harry Kenmare series of novels. And this third novel, Harry's Grail, is a work in progress due out this year. His hard-boiled, gritty, and noir writing style has been likened to that of great writers like Raymond Chandler and Ken Brew. AB? Next up is another amazing editor of this anthology, Vern Smith. Vern, how you doing, bud? He's a Canadian writer and editor. His book, Scratching the Flint, was named Best Indie Novel of 2023 by Crime Fiction Lover. He's also the author of the novels Under the Table and The Green Ghetto. He's winner of the Chinaski Award as editor of the Jack Crime Fiction Anthology. And Vern's a former newspaper reporter, magazine editor, radio host, and political staffer, and he's coming to us from the Windy City, Chicago. Vern. We're also joined by two of the incredible contributing authors to this anthology. First, E.F. Sweetman. Elizabeth, how you doing? She lives in Beverly, Massachussetts. Her short stories have appeared in Pulp Modern, Switchblade, Funded Publications, Iconoclast Review, and Broadswords and Blasters. She's worked as a fishmonger, a picture framer, a bike shop girl, and a nurse until she took the leap into writing crime and noir, and she's currently at work on a hard-boiled crime trilogy. Elizabeth, good to see you. And last but certainly not least, my personal favorite because she hawks alcohol, Ashley Erwin, ladies and gentlemen. She's a Southern pulp writer of Grit Black Blood and a ballad concerning Black Betty, or the retelling of A Man Killer and Her Machete. She's an avid reader at Noir at the Bar, and she travels across the country with some occasional jaunts over the pond for some debauchery in England. And she bides her time and is coming to us from sunny Los Angeles, where she peddles whiskey for the day job. Ashley, so great to see you. I can't thank you, ladies and gentlemen, enough so much for agreeing to come on the show and talk about this incredible anthology. I'll tell you what, let me go to Australia first down under, since this is your brainchild there, Andy. Tell us about your vision for this project, how it came along.
Okay, well, good morning, George, and good morning, everybody. And thank you so much, George, for having us on the show and for your support, as always, for indie authors. You are an incredible supporter of the writing scene, which is great. All right, Romy Lives. There we go. Look, it's a project quite a while in the making. The initial part of it was that, and I will unashamedly say that as a teenager, as soon as I saw Romy Schneider on screen, I was hooked. And I've been a massive fan ever since. That's a long time ago. But I thought, in terms of anthologies, which I like the anthology format. I think it's a great way of getting a whole range of different voices together. From the reading, I read a lot of anthologies too, and the reading experience I find invaluable in terms of tasting different voices that are out there. But Romy, apart from my own interest and obsession, her film oeuvre really, it was so heavily dominated by crime and noir and that's obviously my main writing area of interest. And I thought this would be a perfect way of putting together an interesting anthology, certainly one that had never been done before in this way. So it was a matter of putting the project together from there. And look, I mean, I think you're going to come back to, I'm probably jumping the gun here, but in terms of what we put out, I sort of got Vern on board, took a little bit of arm twisting, not too much, but
taking arm twisting.
Said, Vern, how did you, come into the picture? Hey, I know you and Andy have worked on some great projects in the past as well, too. And please elucidate on that story a little bit. Tell us how you got drug in.
Drug in. I was happy to go once I realized what it was. Just to back up a little bit in terms of the trajectory of AB and I working together. I sort of came to AB as a fanboy. There had been a controversy about his short story collection, Harry Kenmar at Your Service. And, I didn't know AB at the time, and we have a mutual friend, the Pulitzer-nominated Tia Genet, and she had pulled my coat to this discussion about AB's book on social media, and there was somebody that was all up in arms because AB had seminal fluid in the first paragraph of his first story, and the person hadn't even read the book and was lighting their hair on fire. And I looked at the discussion, and it wasn't so much that I wanted to read a book that had seminal fluid in the first scene. It was that it was eliciting a response, and that people who hadn't even read the book were upset about it. And so, I read the book, and like I was, in terms of PI detective story collections, is far and above my favorite, and to my own heart, he slayed every sacred cow and dared to go where I not tread, and and so I was interested in him as a writer right away. We ended up becoming friends through the Independent Fiction Alliance, and he called a meeting with me, a Zoom meeting, and he asked, do I want to do a themed anthology? And I never want to do a themed anthology. And and he said, how about a Romy Schneider anthology? And it was just like I got hit with pixie dust. And I was, for about 30 seconds there, I was like a deer in the headlights. And I flashed back to, and this is something that figures into my contribution. I flash back to this afternoon in the 1970s. I'm Gen X, and we weren't very well supervised. And I was downstairs in the basement watching a Romy Schneider movie. I believe it was The Swimming Pool, and it was a lot of adult themes that I couldn't grasp at the time. And, it was probably cut up for, it was on Bill Kennedy at the Movies, which was on a UHF station, Channel 50 out of Detroit. And at some point my mom came down, and I'm just like, who dat? And she told me it was Romy Schneider, and we had a conversation about it. And from that point on, I always had, an innocent crush on her. It's something that speaks to, it's something that figures into my story, as I said. And, right away I said, absolutely, I would love to do a Romy Schneider anthology. And we got to work on it. Took a couple years. And, there were points where we both went back and said, okay, we need more of this, we need more of that. Let's stop and go get these things and work on what we have. And so there were some stops and starts, but it was a lot of second effort. And I think we got it right. We have some fabulous writers here. E.F. Sweetman and Ashley Erwin, who are going to speak to their stories. But the whole thing, I mean, story for story, I know I want to put this diplomatically, I know we're beating the hell out of everybody on the page with this. And that's always the main thing to me. It's important. It's important that we have stories that blur the lines between good and bad. And it's important that we have stories from 6 different countries, from writers from 6 different countries. We've got probably 5 decades worth of writers in terms of age range. That's always what I'm looking for in an anthology as a reader, and that's what I'm looking for in an anthology as a curator. And it was just a joy and privilege to work with AB, who I had already admired greatly as an editor and saved my ass on Scratch and Split. And it was great to work again with some writers that before. It's great to work with a new group as well, whose work I'm not familiar with, but I am getting familiar with. So, that's sort of how we got here from there, and I couldn't be happier with the way things turned out.
Well, the anthology definitely, I mean, the stories contained in the book are just incredible, and I definitely highly recommend everybody pick it up. That's for sure. And you guys, when you edited Andy and Vern and selecting authors, I know you gave very specific instructions about the stories. You want to talk about that a little bit and how you arrived at selecting some of the authors that got to contribute to this awesome book?
Sure. I think in terms of the project brief that went out to any authors who were interested after we'd approached them, there was sort of basically, apart from a word limit guideline, which is fairly standard for anthologies, but there were basically three, I suppose, mandatory instructions. One was it had to be crime noir or pulp as a genre. The second was the story had to have one of Romy's film titles as the story title. And so anybody who's interested, we sent them the complete filmography from Romy so people could pick. I think we had about 4 people try and go for the swimming pool.
Yeah.
Obviously one of her popular ones. It was first in, best dressed on the story selection for the titles. And the third requirement, and this was particularly important, was that somehow in the story, and there was no direction given as to how this needed to be achieved, but somehow the story in some way had to pay tribute to Romy, because that was one of the underlying parts of the ethos of the whole anthology. That apart from obviously she's certainly my favourite actress of all time. Well, she's got some tough competition, but I think what really sort of strikes me for her too is the tragedy of her life, which I think overlays a lot of things, and you can see, I think, a lot of that when you watch her on screen.
Yeah.
That her ability to portray human emotions and the difficulty of human emotions and the conflicts is quite stunning, I think. So those were the instructions that were given to all of the authors who are interested. In terms of how we picked them, well, and that's where it worked out really well, getting together with Vern to co-edit with me, because I had a number of people that I knew from the indie crime writing community. Obviously, Ashley and Elizabeth on screen, who I've shared pages with in a number of places, and other authors that I knew of. Vern obviously knew other authors as well. Some of them we knew in common, And it was really a case of, well, okay, what authors do we think would write something really good for this? But also looking for that range of voices. So Vern's obviously talked around. We had people from 6 different countries. We've got a big range of ages. Actually, I hadn't thought of that in the terms before, but yeah, we have got quite a big generational spread. So it was really a case of wanting to get that variety of voices in. But with those rules around the themes, and as stuff was coming in, I thought this is just great. And from an editing point of view, the sheer range of different approaches that people took was stunning. And I think that shows up in the end result. Everybody followed instructions, but in so many different ways, and that was great. That was I think one of the joys of it. And then, of course, it's getting in and editing that and getting it all polished up. And as Vern said, we thought sometimes, well, we need to get a bit more here or whatever. So we did that. But look, at the end of the day, delighted with the range we ended up with. There's 20 authors in there, which is quite a large number for an anthology these days. But that's what we had in, and we certainly weren't chopping anybody out. So, and look, there were other authors who were also approached, but for whatever reason, didn't participate. Generally they were too busy with other things. But I had hoped to get a couple of other Australians in there, but I might come back to my comments on the indie writing scene in my country when I've had a bit more whiskey.
On that one. A little more about that's right with Canada. That's few about the range of the stories in the book. They're just incredible, and I think if you're gonna do an anthology on Romy, that her acting was just that varied, had that great range, everything from gritty to passionate. So the stories are incredible. And Elizabeth, you're one of the authors here. Why don't you kind of take us when you got the invite to submit to the anthology? You got those instructions about tying Romy Schneider into the story, and you chose the sensuous assassin.
Oh man, yeah.
And proceeded to weave a story about a finesse hit, and just incredible. So in terms of giving that story, please take us through it.
Well, I got the email from AV, and it was, I had kind of fallen out of the scene a little bit just kind of tapped out a little bit, but it was like just such a welcome email. And then he said, here's my idea. And I knew who Romy Schneider was, but I didn't know her. As Vern said, you'd turn on the UHF channels and a movie would be on. And of course I knew the swimming pool. I think that's how I knew her. So then I saw the list of her movies, and it was incredible how many she did. When I saw the title, this sensuous assassin, I was like, I can't believe this one isn't taken, because I feel like a little late. And I was like, oh yeah. It was first a movie called Qui, I believe it was in French. And it was my take on the story was that she is a sensuous assassin, but then I wanted to kind of approach it as it wasn't going to be expected entirely, it would be more of a mishap and confusion, and she wasn't initially meant to be an assassin, and then she learned she was more of a pawn. And what I wanted to have happen with the story, not to give much away, was that that's what you thought through to the very end. But just having seen some of Romy Schneider's movies, I just had the character. I knew exactly how she'd move. I think I had a lot more French phrases in it, but just pulled them out to keep it very direct, kind of fast moving, because that's what I wanted. I wanted it to kind of hit hard. I always like to use some humor in my stories, not to be slapstick, but just to keep engaged with maybe some black humor, as well as some gore and unexpected killing and murders.
Speaking of characters, I mean, Ashley, your story, you chose Innocence with Dirty Hands, and your character, obviously, you be a truly singular voice, right? And, it's came up, how did her patterns of speech, what directed you as you were putting together your contribution to the anthology?
Well, like Elizabeth, I wasn't so very familiar with Romy's oeuvre before, so it was the title that grabbed me, Innocent with Dirty Hands, and then the fact that the American release was just titled Dirty Hands. And I said, well, that definitely is an area that I want to play in. And after watching the movie and watching her kind of be over leverage her capabilities of duplicitousness and be placed in, it's kind of like she put her hand in the cookie jar and then something came right back out and said, you don't belong here. And this vacillating between the two worlds I found was really intriguing. How the character of Norval came to me is how all characters come to me. There's just a line that appears in my head, and that tends to be the character talking, and I just allow for them to cause some mayhem and debauchery. And so I knew that I wanted it to encapsulate a moment in time, meaning a place, a very rich, contextualized place. And so putting it in the dead heat of summer in southern Georgia, where you're just sweating from your eyebrows and you're and as we can attest in Louisiana, it's just awful. It's just a god awful thing. And this is a wronged character who was wronged by another character who then therefore becomes wronged themselves. And so it was the snake eating the tail to a certain degree. But also, I want to comment how very welcome it was to receive the invitation to participate in this, because it's such a delight every time anyone asks for an opportunity for us to flex our creativity. I mean, what a wonderful thing. So I can't thank you enough for being invited to the table and to open up the email to that and, lean in and say, well, this is a challenge. Let's do it. And so that's how I ended up here.
No, absolute pleasure with the invitation. I mean, I've obviously read work from both of you along the way and love the stories. So yeah, it was you were both high on my list for hoping they'll accept the invitations. And you did. So
if I could just jump in here, a quick word on both stories from Ashley and EF, and one of the things that was really important to me is you do have strong female characters in here, but these are characters who are compromised, they're conflicted, they blur the lines between good and bad. And so I never feel like anything's ideological here. You have characters who, are, I don't want to play spoiler, but it's not all good what they're doing, and specifically in regards to Ashley's story, it's told in a Georgian accent. The narrator is speaking a Georgian accent, and it's something that AB and I had spoke. AB had read the story first and briefed on what was coming in, and I was able to, like, right from the first line, pick up the poetry of the way the narrator was telling the story, and I was just able to lock in and go with it, and it was something that really gave the book, and this is always very important to me, whether it be in an anthology I'm editing or my own collection of stories, is I bow at the altar of range, and it gave us a gear that we didn't have. And so, absolutely right away, this is exactly what we're looking for. And in regards to E.F. Sweetman's story, it was something I would describe as a low-rent spy thriller. And again, we didn't have anything else like that. We didn't have anything espionage-y. And so it was something, again, that you have the blurring the lines between good and bad. You have the character who's not all good, and doing obviously some egregious things. But again, it was something that gave the book another gear, something that gave the book range. And, these are the things that are important to me when I'm building a collection. And, all the stories are fabulous. I'm happy with everything. It's important that we're not chasing the devil and, hammering away and making the same points in every story. It's important that we have stories that are told a different style, that we have distinctive voices, and both your stories gave us that.
Oh, great.
These are the things that make the book a better book, and that's the way you win the battle, story by story. And those two stories got us a long way there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's incredible the range of the stories in this anthology, and it is packed. I mean, there are a lot of stories, and each of them is just really, really, they pull me right in. And as you say, they all have her, and it's just to see the different ideas about them was pretty incredible. So I hats off to both of you. This was a great idea. And you're like, AB, when you say like the brief, at first I was like, what? And then it's like, wait a second, he's giving us a chance to kind of just go with it. Mm-hmm. It's this is pretty much what you're looking for, but then I could run with it, and I loved it. I loved doing it, and I loved, actually the voice, and I think it's tricky to give someone like an accent you can hear in your head without. Sometimes it's overdone, sometimes it's underdone, but it was just flowing. It was fantastic. All these stories were just great. Loved them.
And do you think? Yeah, and Andy, I was going to ask you because, obviously, look, when you listen to Vern about anthologies, right? It's, some people love them and some people hate them. I happen to be a real great fan of anthologies because really the way they're put together and the flow of the range of stories is kind of an art form in itself. And, it, like you said, it's packed with 20 authors. I mean, there's actually a story within a story, isn't there, about some of the authors in the book? You want to talk about that a little bit, or?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose reaching out to people for it, and obviously going fairly wide to start with, but everybody was there by invitation, and I think that was important because rather than just throwing a general thing out there and seeing what comes in, I think being able to identify authors who you knew could deliver from what you've read of them in the past, and I think between Vern and myself, we can safely say that we'd read every author in there before they were invited. Both of us had read some of them, but others, either one of us had read them. So we knew who we were inviting. But then, to come back to what Elizabeth was just saying, it's not a case of wanting to be too directive in terms of the project brief, but you want to keep it within a theme. And as said, to me, the most important thing was, apart from the story titles, and actually, just digress for a second, Innocence with Dirty Hands is one of my favourite films of hers. I've actually got the movie poster framed on my bedroom wall. It's a fantastic film. If it hadn't been for I picked mine, The Train, because that was actually the very first Romy film I ever saw.
Okay.
And so I love the themes in that story, so I went with that one. But if it hadn't been for that, I would have probably gone for Innocence with Dirty Hands. But I think just in terms of giving them a title, but also the making the point to everybody, there has to be a tribute to Romy in here. This is not just a writing exercise. This is also about paying tribute to somebody who was a very, very fine actor and artist, and obviously tragically died far too young. So that was part of the selection to it. We obviously, and then certainly. I mean, so to stick the element, I guess, of a tragedy in a way. Of course, the anthology opens with Les Edgerton's story. Now, I'd never met Les in person, but we had corresponded on social media over time, and so when I'd approached him, he said, "Yeah, I'd love to." So he contributed a story. And then by the time we came to publication, of course, sadly, Les had passed away. So that's why, and Vern suggested, and I wholeheartedly supported him, okay, well, as a tribute to Les, let's open the anthology with Les' story, which is how we picked that to start with. But I mean, look, Les' story I thought was great. I mean, he was such a talented writer. And again, adds a completely different dimension, I think, in terms of storyline to that. But yeah, other than that, I mean, obviously it was just a case of, who we're getting in. And I said, I think we ended up with a really good mix. And, as we've all said, the range of storytelling and the range of voices across the anthology, I think really, makes it valuable in terms of that, and really reinforces to me what was the beauty of anthologies. It is that range of voices and that sampling you get to do of other authors, a lot of whom you may not have met before in terms of reading. But it gives you avenues then to read further. So that's always a good thing too.
It's like going to a really good party, right? You go to a party, find you're surrounded by all the cool kids and stuff, and you're like, hot damn, this is fun.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'll tell you what, it really was just an incredible thing of work. And everybody, I tell you, please let's talk, telling everybody what exactly you're into now, and by all means, and we could just run backwards around the circle, but please, Ashley, tell us, give everybody your handles, your website, whatever, and what you're working on now, and by all means, plug it away.
Thank you, I shall. You can find all of my writing samples as well as links to Grit Black Blood, which was published by Shotgun Honey in 2022 at ashley-erwin.com. And there's also a full audiobook. I specialize in oral storytelling, which is where I actually had the pleasure of reading with AB in LA once. And so there's links to that. I'm working on something new. I'm working on something outside of the genre, which I'm keeping a little bit close to the chest.
Okay.
So for right now, challenge. And I'm working on another short story, a commissioned short story that's tactical fighting, which, of course, obviously, I'm an expert on. So, actually, Ninja Warrior on Twitter and Blue Sky and wherever else.
No, also, Elizabeth, how about you? Please, by all means.
I am on X as EF Sweetman, which is in the little blue box. No period between the E and the F. But and right now I've been working on a trilogy, and it's something I'm really loving. Wanna finish it up, get it out there, and it's so interesting. The first one was just my single story idea, but then I just thought I could do more with it, and thought if I have a trilogy, it's something that I could probably put out or shop out as, this is more than one book. However, I love the indie scene. That's where I actually got my start. AB, I see the T-shirt you're wearing, and that's where I got my start. And I was never so afraid of Scotch as when I submitted that story and was like, oh my God. He is awesome. And Scotch Rutherford put out a bunch of Switchblade anthologies, and wow, that is when I really saw crime is incredible. It's something that you can dive into and be part, as either a writer or reader, be kind of like part of this community. And I know it's had some ups and downs, but I just enjoy every minute of it. I love reading it. I love writing it. I've done before I was on Romy Lives, I did a commission story for Alex Zizek, where we did just those very short novelization of a 9-minute movie, and that was probably one of the toughest things I've ever done, but it was also the most fun I ever had. Just kind of like thinking outside of a box when you're trying to write a story. So I've had such great fortune to get to know such good people in this genre, and look forward to more. Yeah.
I'm just wrapping up a novella, which uses the same detectives from Scratching the Flint, and that's probably the last time I will write about them. And I'm also actually my contribution to the Romy anthology is just an excerpt from a novel in progress. So the prompt sort of forced me to do a novel outline, and I'm about 25,000 words into that. And so I've got my work cut out for me between those two projects. And in terms of my own writing, my own fiction writing anyways, that's all I'm taking on right now. I've got enough between those two projects.
Where can they reach you, buddy?
What's that?
Where can they reach you? On your social media and website?
Best place to see what I'm up to is on X at Real Vern Smith.
But certainly not least, my good friend from down on Andrew.
Well, the short stories, always working on a few of them, and just to hark back to what Elizabeth said, Switchblade was also my first entree into short story writing, so and working with Scott Rutherford back in the day was fantastic. My first short story, I picked up the first issue of Switchblade when it was published, and I read this, thought, I like this style and putting it together, and I thought I might give this a crack. So I did, and so the first story that I submitted, it was heavily edited by the time I submitted it, but it was he accepted it. So, and that's where the short story started. So actually, the collection that Vern talked about, the Harry Kenmed PI at Your Service, which is 7 short stories, standalone short stories about my main character Harry. 3 of them were published in Switchblade, and then I had others. So then I thought I'm going to put together a volume myself, which I did, and then all the fun that followed.
This is highly recommended.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate that. In terms of what I'm doing now, apart from working, as you know, there are 2 Harry novels already out. That is the 90,000 word manuscript for the 3rd novel.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So I'm editing. I'm just editing and editing and editing. It's, as you all know, it's such an endless process, and you can get to a point where you think, I don't want to see it anymore.
The doctor. Did you see that bottom of the book? This is my latest work. It's not coffee stage. I can't get anything done. So go ahead, bud.
George. So Harry's Grail, the 3rd novel. I'm hoping to get that out, publish that out, probably at this rate, between having to do that horrible paid work stuff, is probably May, around then, I think. But it's coming along nicely. So, and then of course there's the other anthology that I've had sort of on the back burner because I wanted to get Romy finished. Is the 2nd Cops Writing Crime anthology. So.
Oh, great.
I've already got quite a number of stories in for that, but I want to try and progress that. And then I've got some other novel ideas I'm sort of playing with in the head, but too early to talk about them yet. So, yeah.
So, by all means, plug your social media and any website you got.
So, my website is www.abpatterson.com.au. Don't forget to put AU on the end. I'm on X. I'm regularly on there under AB Patterson Auth, AUTH. I'm on Facebook LinkedIn for the sort of the more professional stuff. They're the main ones I use, and loving the indie author scene. And look, if I can just indulge, and you can edit this out later if you want, George. I made reference before to the indie author scene in Australia. It's that there's a reason why every indie author I'm friends with is either in the US or the UK. The writing scene here is very conservative and very cliquey, and sort of my perception anyway. I'm not saying this is a fact, but it's my perception of it. But I've been in the writing scene now for 10 years. Is that the indie scene here? If you're an indie writer here, you're sort of like that steaming dog turd on the footpath. Everybody avoids you, and every now and then somebody steps on you. But I mean that's why, and again with the entree to Switchblade originally, and this is why while social media's got downsides, of course it has. Everybody, you're all here, and I only know any of you because of social media.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of connectivity, it's a wonderful thing. So it's like anything, yin and yang.
Right.
But I think the scene that I find in America, notwithstanding there are other groups that can be challenging, but I think that overall, I mean the supportive element that I find particularly with American writers. And this positive attitude towards it, I think it's wonderful, and I gravitate. I love it. Every time I get online with my writing friends in America, it's great because there's a completely different attitude.
That's great.
I think that's the key thing. So and look, I just think with indie writing generally, it's that difference of voice that you get out there, the range. We talked about the range, obviously, in the anthology. But certainly I find that a lot of the mainstream publishing house fiction, particularly crime fiction these days, is quite vanilla, and obviously I think toned down for all sorts of different reasons. We're not going to get into that, but I just think it's not. I want writing which makes me feel something, writing which stirs something inside, as all of these stories in all the different ways did in the anthology. So, yeah. Long live the indie scene.
Well, you can plug it away, and for God's sakes, Andrew, please say the word vanilla again.
Vanilla.
You say yes.
Get him to say we're going to put some shrimp on the Barbie.
Yeah, go on, Mike. Fat by the shrimp on the Barbie, will you?
Oh,
Canada off cam.
That's right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, by all means, look, if you need to go check out Romy Lives, it's now out on ABP Publishing, and it's available wherever you get your fine reading materials. By all means, this anthology is incredible. We've just had a small taste of it tonight, but by all means, please check it out. So everybody from Cocktails with Cav, again, I know I said it earlier in the show, but I was so honored to have you guys and gals here on the show tonight. Andrew from down under in Australia, Vern from Chicago, Elizabeth from beautiful Massachusetts, and Ashley, of course, from LA, my liquor sponsor. She's what keeps me going. So
real life with Ashley's whiskey.
I'm getting that Angel's End.
Yeah.
That's right, exactly right. And I'm from New Orleans, so everybody, please, by all means, go check out Romy Lives. All the links will be in the description for all the panelists' information in their websites, as well as links to this great anthology. Romy Lives. Cheers.
So much. Yeah.
Cheers. Thanks for having us, George.
Thank you, George.